Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Good morning from sunny and cold Maryland here in the United States. We just had like about 4 or 5 inches of snow the last couple of days, and today it's going to be in the 40s, so it should be melting down. As soon as I start talking, she has to get in the scene. Hi, hi. Wow, you smell. Are you playing in the snow? Wet dog. Get down, get down. Oh, go to bed. But anyhow. Yeah, dogs love snow. I don't know why. I would be freezing in the snow, right? Because it's so cold. Uh, I haven't even gone out for a photo walk. It's just the wind. The wind, just knocked me out. But man, my dog last night she got out because my mom was coming over, as she always does, and she left the front gate open. And Ellie doesn't listen, If she sees the gate open, she is like, beeline to the neighborhood. And she likes to roam, and it's scary because it was dark, and uh, she's a black dog, so you can't see her at night very well. So I was really worried. But fortunately, she um she came back, and about after she went to the neighbor's yard, she came running back to me like 10 minutes later, and everything was fine. I couldn't believe that's the first time. I can't tell you. It's been a couple of years since she got out or got loose. But when my uncle was still alive and, I was taking care of him here at the house, he'd leave the front gate open all the time, because he's just not fast enough, right? And she used to get out all the time, and it was a freaking nightmare, you know? It would take me sometimes a couple hours to find her. One time I found her in this abandoned house in my neighborhood. And it's just very random. I was just driving around all the streets and I saw this dirt road going down a hill. So I went down this hill. There's a lot of woods back there, and there's just a house down there. And she had planted herself in the porch. I guess she got scared or something, but she came running back into the car and was so happy to see me. And this is early on when I first got her. Um, so we built a pretty good bond very early on. But she's still a free spirit, man. I tell you, she gets loose and she's a wild animal. So let's see who's here. Darko, good morning. And Marcia, good to see you. And gosh, Marcia, I'm not sure which one you are. If you're the one in Florida or the one over, I think in the UK maybe. And John Yutse from Ohio. John Follows, good to see you. Jeff Painter. And you guys have been sending me emails kind of randomly. I think it was John Follows and Jeff Painter both sent me emails recently, so I appreciate that. Giving me links to um, the OMD, OM Digital magazine, which I did take some time to read this morning. I didn't read every article, but I just read the one about the one photographer who's an architectural photographer. And his two cameras, um, his favorite cameras were the Olympus Pen F and with the 17 and the EM5 Mark III, which are my two go-to cameras for my, regular photography. And he does pretty good architectural work. It's definitely a very different style. I probably would have taken the same kinds of pictures, but some of them were magnificent, and then a couple of them were like, I don't know if I would take a picture like that because you'll have to look in the OM Digital magazine and see the pictures this guy has. If I can pull it up, I will. But um, it got me thinking about when I go out and photograph, and it's partially due to when I shoot film. I'm really careful. You're so invested in every shot. Both financially because of the cost of film, mentally, time wise. Uh, the time you put into composing each shot and focusing and stuff like that. That it did get me to slow down and think about the shot before just taking it. And I do that now a lot with my digital. I've kind of shifted back to just spray and pray sometimes, particularly birds in flight. You know, sports action, you pretty much are, have to. But um, there's just a lot of shots that I still don't take that I would have taken earlier on. So I would suspect my total count of pictures per year is going to go down drastically these next few years. That's definitely a shift I've noticed in the past 6 months, that I just don't take as many pictures. Um, so it's less to delete ultimately. But let's see, David Tellett, David Crooks, good to see you. I'll see you guys this weekend. David Crooks is he runs our local photography club here in Virginia, the 495 Beltway Photographers Club, which you can find on Meetup. And then also David Tellett is also a member that I met, and he shoots primarily film, which is awesome, and has been very generous as well with cameras and donations and things. So I really appreciate that. And Robert Welsh, hi. Oh, I forgot how to pronounce that. Gloucestershire. I've learned so much from you. You instructed videos on the M10 Mark II. Thank you. I try. I try. And I do have another video come out. I know a lot of people are waiting for it. The press and hold menus, right? When you press and hold a button and what it does differently. So I've been practicing just to kind of get a feel for, because there's a lot of buttons I didn't even know that you could press and hold and it does something on OMDs. And so I just wanted to practice a little bit before I started actually recording the video. So I'm not doing retake after retake after retake. I can just kind of smoothly go through it. This press and hold is not something I think about when I'm using the camera, right? I'm used to programming a button to do a specific thing, and then I click on it and that it does it, right? Like I click this button to enable focus peaking, or I click a button to enable HDR, and I take a picture. But um, when you press and hold a button, sometimes it'll do something else. Typically, the most common thing it does is actually just reset things, right? So if you change your exposure compensation and to say +2, you push and hold the OK button down, and it'll reset it back to 0 for you very quickly. So that's the most common type of thing you'll find in the push and hold, but there's other things. Push and hold, turn the dial. Not every button can be assigned to every function, obviously, we know that, but there's there's one or two buttons that can only be assigned to one very specific function, which I can't imagine anybody really using, but it's there. So we'll talk about that in the video coming up. So it may be an eye-opener for some. It may improve your workflow somewhat for some. I know it's definitely going to help me in my workflow um, with working with the camera in the field. So I'm excited for that. Like I said, I got to think of a way to present it in a way that you can think about your workflow in the field. I guess just using my own example would be best. But yeah, that'll be a fun video. Well, not fun. My videos are so dry and boring that most people. What I tell most people to do is just play my videos at 2x speed. You can change the playback speed on videos, and you can take a 20-minute video and watch it in 10 minutes and get the same information. But some people, they like to watch it at the pace I'm teaching at. And I found that a lot of people, they really like, particularly if English is not their first language, they say that I'm very articulated and my pronunciation is very clear for people where English is not their first language. And it really helps them a lot. So that, I get that time to time, which is, it's nice. So, but if you're like younger and very fast, right? Yeah, play the videos back at 2x speed, and it's like I think you'll get more out of it, not fall asleep. And Jeff Painter says, "Oh, hi Ann, how are you?" And Marco's here. You're not late. I started kind of on time, only about a minute or two late. So, um, and Leon says, "Gee, Rob, been looking for the Ollie magazine, but could not find it. Any link that you might be able to share?" Yes. Let me. I got an email. I think actually from Anne. I'll post that up here. Oh, DeMorcan. Okay, good. I got an email from DeMorcan. Where's Anne's email? Yeah, Annette. It says Annette. I guess it's Anne. It's not Anne Eastbury. It's Annette. Annette sent me an email. Let me copy this link. So that should be it there. Let me just click on it to make sure it's working. Yeah, it pulls up a. I'll pull it up here for you. This is it. And yeah, the first half is like in all English, and then the second half is in the native language of the photographer. I thought that was kind of neat. That was a neat thing to do. Let me show you the guy I was talking about earlier, the architectural guy. Um, oh, did I overlook it? Oh, here he is. This guy, R. Cleveland Aaron. So this is what I was saying. Like this picture here, I don't think I would have taken this picture myself because all these trees are just a mess to me. Uh, but this one, for example, is really nice. This is beautiful, and I like the balance here between the clouds and the structure. If it was a clear day, I think I would have focused more on just the building, but including the clouds like this, it actually works. Um, Let me see. It's a little bit cut off here. Uh, and yeah, this is another one. I don't think I would have taken a picture like this because the glass is cutting off things. I guess I don't know. I I mean it's a great picture, but it just shows how different my view is when I go out and I take architectural type photos. I wouldn't have seen this or bothered to take a picture like this. But it's interesting how the reflections are. I mean, there's a lot to look at and a lot of information to gather from this image. But compositionally, it doesn't do anything for me. And then this one is great because we got good symmetry. This was actually, I guess, a place of worship, so he couldn't do any pictures inside. But I love this pool. I'm just wondering what it would have looked like in color if this water was blue and, the tones of this building here. But another thing that I found interesting, like I love this one. This is a shot that I wouldn't have taken, but now that I've seen one like it, I'm like, I'm gonna try and do something like this. I love how this bridge here frames this building, and also this railway here down here is framing the building. So you have a lot of context. You have these beautiful skies and this amazing architectural building that just breaks up all of the straight lines and uh, very mundane scene otherwise. Because imagine if this building wasn't here. It might be a good picture, but having that building there like that makes it epic. And even the keystoning errors where things are kind of crooked don't bother me in this. The crooked lines and everything. Because a lot of you guys that know me, I'm like Mr. Lines got to be straight. Horizons got to be straight. Buildings have to be straight. But this is something that I think Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Like this little building here coming out, I'd have probably cropped this off. But then again, it's helping to frame the building, right? So I thought this was a terrific picture. And then the other thing I'll note is that he's using dramatic tone filter. He doesn't say that in the article, but I can tell from the building. But when I read the article, he says he does like using the creative filters in the Pen F and stuff. So I'm sure this is I'm pretty sure this is a dramatic tone filter, but somehow it's been toned back. So maybe he did some post processing to get it like this. Look at the moire on the side here. This is so you know, my point is when you go into these when you look at the magazine, you know, there's a really nice intro paragraph about OM Digital is going to carry on the Olympus tradition and all that. You know, time will tell. But the article, the photos in there, um, you know, go through them and look at them and think about the composition that they were doing. Like if I go to this is interesting. She's into abstract type photos, which I'm terrible at, but would like to try. Oh wait, you can't see anything. Hold on. This person, she's really into abstracts, right? By looking at these couple of photos. Uh, here's a wildlife photographer, but you know the compositions of these. He's really got two different styles, right? Is front and center and really tight. It kind of goes back to uh, that quote from one of those photographers. I forget his name. If your photos aren't good enough, you're not close enough. You know that saying? So he gets nice and tight in all of these, but there was another wildlife guy in here that I wanted to point out a couple of things. A lot of wildlife guys. You know, this is you know, off center rule of thirds type thing. Here we have triangles. Um, this is another one. This is interesting. He centered the beaver, or yeah, this is a beaver. Right in here on the right thirds. Well, yeah, look at this. Now this was an interesting technique where you use a slow shutter speed to kind of get this motion blur on the waves, right? But then the bird is not really moving, so you capture the bird tack sharp. I mean, there's a tiny bit of motion blur in here, but you know, for the most part, uh, this is a this is a stunning photo to me. And and then yeah, here's the native language side. So definitely take some time to read that. I think it was really good. And Steve Page is here. Good to see you. And Moises is asking, have you seen Benro's new electronic tripod head? No, I have not seen that. Sounds like something else to break down. Let me do a quick search. Let's go to, what's it on? Kickstarter? I don't know. I see this one. Benro Polaris Smart Electric Tripod Head. What's the pledge price or whatever? I don't know how these things work. Star tracking. Oh, I have to talk about this with Ben later. Focus stacking. Interesting. So Uh, I don't know. Is that the one you're talking about? Um, Moise Moises. And Ann says, I'm good. Hope you didn't get too much snow. No, just 4 or 5 inches, but during the day the temperature stayed just above freezing, so the roads and everything cleared very nicely. And thanks for the advice last week. Took delivery of the M1 Mark II and 12 to 42.8 kit for 1,019 pounds. Awesome. That's a great setup there. And you're so pleased. I'm glad. It's a great camera. It really is. And you really enjoyed Brooke Barson article and photos. Okay, like I said, I only read the one all the way through. I didn't read the others. I just skimmed the pictures. But when it was the architectural guy, I said, I got to stop and read what he thinks, right? He's also a musician, which was interesting. And John says, I think one of the shots were taken with the 17 f2.8. Yep, probably. And that's not a popular lens, in the Olympus world. And then Moises says, I should check out Craig Roberts. Yeah, I've watched his channel a few times. A lot, actually. He's great. He's great. He pokes a little fun at himself, and then he takes really great photos. I agree. Oh, Corna, hey, how are you? What's up? And thanks for the link. Yeah, thank Ann, Annette, Annette for that. Annette Johnson. Moises says, "Yep, that was the tripod head. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's kind of like a motorized. Um, well, I mean, I've seen similar things somehow, somewhere. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know how much it's going to cost, though. Hmm. But anyway, oh my God, Ellie's being so, oh, I shouldn't have said her name. She's being so good. She's sleeping down on her bed. And Barana says, thanks for the link. I will take some time to read that. Yeah, I thought it's very inspiring, and it's fun to read about, other photographers and how they got started. Because, there's a little bit of an interview process in there. They don't really talk about the picture taking so much as, at least the one article I read, they talked about how he got started and his, the way what he thinks about when he's taking the picture and things like that. Another good video um, I saw was Robin Wong. His high ISO video. He just put it out yesterday, I think. And of course, he takes great pictures, and he was shooting at like high ISO for this behind the scenes concert type thing. And you know what I think you guys should take away from that video. Not that Micro Four Thirds can handle low light. Of course it can. But if you look at because he's putting the settings that he used, the exposure settings anyway, that he used for every shot next to it. And with the exception of one shot, I think every 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 time he used every shot had really good settings for the exposure. And I'm pretty sure he was setting the ISO manually. I don't think, based on the way I was watching it, because the settings were very, very specific to the scene. So I don't know if he was in full manual or just aperture priority, but I'm pretty sure the only thing he let the camera do is pick the shutter speed. Um, and he set the aperture and the ISO manually. It's what I think he did based on the settings that I saw. Uh, because you'll notice in particular, that based on the lens he was using 2 primes and the zoom, but based, or no, he wasn't. I got the impression I saw some shots with a 12 to 40 in there, but in the beginning he said he only used 3 primes. But in any case, he kept his shutter speed just under double the focal length, right? So if the focal length was 75 millimeters, his shutter speed might be like 100 or 120th of a second. So he was definitely taking advantage of the IBIS to get sharp photos. And that's a good shutter speed for taking pictures of people because, you know, it freezes the action just enough, but may still leave some motion blur if they're going crazy because it was a concert, right? Which is, I think, a very nice effect for that kind of photography. But he was very careful with his shutter speed in every shot that he showed on screen. So I think, you know, watch that video and just pay attention to the settings because I remember a video by Tony Northrup where he said settings don't matter. And he said that, you know, and I forget the name of the video. It's probably settings don't matter. But he was tired of people asking what settings did you use to get that picture. And his argument was that, well, the settings are going to be different every time I take a picture. There's no point in telling you what my settings were for that picture. Was you know, long story short, right? And I would disagree a lot with that because when I watched Robin's Wong video, um, I looked at the settings and I tried to figure out, you know, how he chose those settings for that particular scene. And I sometimes he pops in here. If he pops in, we can ask him, you know. But or just leave a comment down below on that video and ask how did he choose the settings? Was he an aperture priority, shutter priority? Was he choosing the ISO manually? And I would say that he was probably an aperture priority in shooting the choosing the ISO manually, but not worrying about what the ISO number is, because he knew he was going to be up there, 10,000, 12,000, right? But he was more concerned about the shutter speed in relationship to the focal length of the lens. And that's the sign of a, you know, an experienced photographer, right? Is, you know, sorry, I heard some weird sound. Is, you know how to set your camera for the scene. And that was a fortunate, I mean, that was a very narrow set of images that he had to take. It was basically indoors, low light. It's not like on a photo walk where light, you know, like outdoors where light can change dramatically and your settings are all over the place. But I think he's a very skilled photographer in that respect, based on the examples that I saw. Because when you're outdoors, usually just shooting aperture priority and you can keep your ISO at 200 and you're fine most of the time in good light. But it's a sign of a very skilled photographer when you can go into a low light situation and get shots like that because he was very conscious of his shutter speeds and things. Um, so just give that, you know, watch that video. It was a good video, and his production quality's really improved. He's now got a background, right, for his videos, and some black brick looking thing. um, but you know the way he sinks in the music in and out, and the pacing of the photography with the monologue. He's doing a great job. It's really come a long way. And let's see. Akna is asking me, "Hi Rob, what cheap M43 lenses should I buy for my first lenses on the M52 body?" Oh, if you don't have any lenses now, cheap would be, and I'm talking, you'd have to buy these used, right? But I think there's a couple of options. You can get the 14 to 42 kit lens, not the power zoom one, but the regular, with the 40 to 150 kit lens. In the US, you can buy those used together for about 200 to 250 bucks used. So don't pay more than like 250, but around 200 bucks, right? And then if you can, throw in a 9mm body cap lens. That lens is 99 bucks used and new, so just buy that one brand new. And 300 bucks, you're set. You're set for most kinds of photography. The other option would be to get the 14 to 150 kit lens. 14 to 150, that runs for around $300 used, like in mint condition, right? Because a lot of people, they get the kit and then they sell the lens separately for 300. Because if you buy brand new, it's like 550 on sale. It's like $600 otherwise. You can get that lens for around 300, and then a 9mm body cap lens. So you're in for about $400 instead of $300. But now you have a weather sealed lens to match your weather sealed camera. So you pay a little more, but I think it'll be a lot more versatile in the long run. And the image quality is pretty close. Very little difference between those two different setups. And that's what I would recommend as a starter kit. Um, Now, if you're a prime shooter, like you don't like zoom lenses, you want to shoot just primes, um, the 17mm, 250 bucks used or less. The 45mm, 200 bucks or less. And then maybe the 20mm or 25mm or the 20mm Panasonic for about $200. So they're about 200 bucks each, those three lenses on the used market. Now you're in for about $600, but you get, if you get those three, right? Now you're in for about 600 bucks, but you have very fast lenses for low light photography. So if you're into street photography, yeah, I would go with those primes rather than the kit lenses. You'll get much better images. It's not as convenient because you got to swap lenses time to time, right? But uh, I think it's definitely worth the trade-off versus trying to get away with kit lenses um, in low light. So that would be my two recommendations for primes and or going with just kit lens zooms. I think that makes sense, right? That would be a good setup. I mean, when I go out on photo walks, I typically just take the 14 to 150 and that's it. Maybe a prime. And the prime might be the 17 or the 75 now. I've been kind of enjoying that 75 a little bit now that I've taken it out a few times. Okay, good. So yeah, if and I'm assuming you're buying all of these used and near mint condition. Um, if you're going brand new across the board, multiply everything I said by two or three. It gets really expensive, unfortunately. Another really good lens is the if you want to go with the kit lens zoom, the 12 to 32 Panasonic f3.5 to f5.6. But that'll give you a nice wide angle, wider than the 14mm from Panasonic, and a significant difference. And it's a little sharper than the Olympus version, um, the 12 to 32, and that's about $135 used in mint condition. And that's an excellent, excellent lens. And it's smaller, more compact. So that would be a great choice as well. And let's see if I missed anything. If anybody has any questions, just put at robtrek and the question. I'll do my best to answer them and give you some rationale. Otherwise, I'm going to ramble about my dog or, how cold it is in my house. Let's see. I did I did set up some. Nobody cares about that. But uh, what's going on this week? I'm gonna go on a photo walk this Saturday to Burke Lake. What's the theme, David? By the way, David always picks a theme whenever he sets up a photo walk for the group, and he always cracks me up. Like we go to Great Falls, and I'm like, okay, theme should be waterfalls, right? No, theme is orange. Like we're gonna go to a waterfall, the Great Falls here in Virginia or Maryland, and he sets the theme to orange, and it's like winter. So I found some orange peels on the ground. Yes, I did start early today, Barry. I realized after I set up the stream today, and I set it up last night. I normally do Thursdays, um, like at 3 or 4 o'clock, like 6 hours from now, instead of in the morning for me. But I don't know. I think this is as good a time as any. My thinking was to spread it out so other viewers from different parts of the world could tune in a little easier. But um, I noticed between 10 and 2 is sort of when most of my viewers are here. So I said, well, can't save everyone. So that's why I just decided to leave it at 10 o'clock today. I was thinking about changing it. And Jose says, I have the kit 14 to 42. Yeah, it's a great lens. I mean, I used to use it all the time until I got to 12 to 32 from Panasonic. I prefer that lens now. And John Yutse says, I tried to love the Ollie 17 2.8, just couldn't get there. Slow AF, noisy, prone to flare and CA, right? Got rid of it in favor of the Panny 20. Yeah, the Panasonic 20 f1.7 is a great lens. It's also slow and a little bit noisy, particularly for video work. I mean, who cares about photography, about noise in photography? But I love that Panasonic 20. I don't have it. I want it. I want it so bad, but it's like I have a 17 1.8. So getting the 20 doesn't buy me anything other than being a little bit more pancake. So if I have to choose between two primes like that, I prefer to go a little bit wider than tighter, personally. Saturday's theme is consistent timing. So you won't be standing there talking to yourself. I don't get that. What do you mean is consistent timing? And Jeff says, this is the perfect time for us Brits. Yes. And Jeff, you sent me an email about something. Oh, about that. I think it was you, right? Was it this, Jeff? This thing here, right? This thing. Is this what we were you emailed me about? And you said it was a scam? The link that you had might have been a scam, but I think this is it, right? Let me know. If so, I can tell you my thoughts on this. Um, Thomas has asked, says, why not consider a series of videos on lens buying? Yeah, maybe. I mean, I have individual videos, right, about comparing lenses between the kit lenses and the pros. Um, but I've never really talked about an overall kind of like lens buying. I mean, Peter Forsgaard has a good video on that. Um, but I guess I can kind of give my spin, right, on it. But if you look at Peter Forsgaard's channel, he has a video on lens buying or something, which was really good. I think he made a lot of good points in that. But the beautiful thing about working in the Micro Four Thirds community is we can all share our own point of view, and there's no criticism, right? It's only um, uh, positive reinforcement of our own views because there's no wrong answer really in photography. when it comes to making your decisions about buying gear. Because you can buy most things, any modern digital camera, any modern lens are going to get you great results. It's more about your workflow, the feature sets that you want, and um, what feels good in your hands, right? And then and a little bit it has to inspire you, like the Pen F. Pen F is kind of my extreme example of cameras that just inspire me to go out and shoot because I just love the look and feel of this camera. And then all of the little minor, the bells and whistles on it that I haven't found on any other camera. Jeff Painter says, that's right. I would be interested to know your thoughts on that Z tilt. Oh, okay, good. And Barry says, Leon says, Rob, can get the pen at 12 to 32 do manual focusing? No, you cannot. It's only autofocus. That's a good point. I mean, it doesn't bother me. That's not a deal breaker by any means. Um, but if you do want a manual focus, you can't do it on that lens. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, and the Penny is a walkabout all-purpose lens. Yeah, just like, the 20 millimeter Panasonic is similar to the 17 1.8 from Olympus, right? It's just kind of a do-it-all lens. And Circo says, first time here. Hey, welcome, welcome. Quick question, is there any difference between the image quality of 14 to 42 versus Easy Paint? No, not at all. The the only, if you're using it on an Olympus camera, right? If you use it on a Panasonic camera, there may be some differences, but because of the barrel distortion, the Pancake lens I noticed has a little more barrel distortion than the regular power zoom one or regular zoom. But image quality wise on an Olympus, all of that's corrected and everything's fine. However, I recommend the regular zoom one because the power zoom one, while I don't think it's an overwhelming problem, it's definitely a problem that's come up often enough that I can't recommend that lens, and that's that it breaks. The cables come loose inside so that it doesn't zoom in and out. The power motor doesn't work anymore, and the lens is dead. It happened to me, and it's happened to several other of my viewers. Like I said, I don't think it's a widespread problem. People have used that lens fine for many years, but um, plus, I like to be able to manually zoom in when I'm taking a picture. It's faster than using the power zoom. Power zoom is just awkward to me. For video work, maybe it's better. Even in video work, I would rather manually zoom. But yeah, and if both those lenses you can manually focus, the Panasonic 12 to 32, while it's sharper than those lenses, it cannot manually focus. But that may not be a deal breaker. It wasn't for me. Okay, let me talk about this mount real quick. Okay, this mount, um, you've probably seen this before, right? It's you put your camera up here on top. I'll just put this here. Put it this way. Obviously, you got to have a lens that doesn't hit the. And I'm just screwing this down. This lens is a little bit too big with this mount, so that's one of the problems, right? You see how it's really tight here? Now the zoom is locked. So I have to push the camera a little bit more forward, just past the zoom ring, and now I can zoom in and out. So you have to be a little bit conscious of that because the bottom plate is really long, right? But then this allows you to just kind of set it. You can't see if I turn this on. Uh, oops, wrong button. Wrong button. Anyway, I'll forget it. All right. You just have to look past all the icons and everything. But here's the mount. It's just a Z mount, right? And you tighten it down here, and then this allows you to just sort of tilt the camera down this way. This is not going to work. I'll just hold it up, even though it's a little hard to see. But imagine this on a flat surface. This allows you to point the camera down like this, point it up, right, like this. And I use this. Um, this makes it really easy for me to put my camera on the dashboard of my car, uh, because tripod legs just extend out too far sometimes. And in my car, the dashboard's not very long. So this makes it real easy. So when I'm doing my drive-by videos, sometimes I have this camera on the dashboard, recording the video. Um, but you can imagine the other uses for this, right? The examples people give is you put this onto a slider so that you can, slide this back and forth. I don't know. It's very stable for like tabletop use, and putting it on a slider is pretty useful too. But the two applications, I don't use this on a slider. I just use a regular ball head. I think it's very good when the space is tight, because if you're in a tight space like on a tabletop, these little mini tripods that because the other option is, right, to get one of these little tiny tripods, but you can see the difference in area that this takes up. It takes them up a lot wider space than the this thing, the Z mount. So I find it useful for when you're in a little bit tighter space, right? If you don't have a lot of table space, or like on the dashboard of my car, and it does give you some wiggle room. But one of the challenges is, particularly when you're using a long lens like this, is when you tilt it forward, it tends to be out of balance, right? So I don't know. It's okay. It's very compact, right? Also, it's more compact than, say, even this, when you have, because this will always be sticking out. So there's a lot of advantages. This is really good for being more compact with your tripod type situations where you need the camera kind of stable. And that's it. Now I bought mine. This sells for about $17 for a generic one. So I imagine, because there's much more expensive ones. I would imagine the more expensive one are a little bit smoother, right? Because I have to tighten these down. It's just a friction-based type thing. So use an Allen wrench to tighten these. I imagine the more expensive ones have a little smoother action. But that's all I would say is if you're working in tight spaces and you want sort of a tripod and carry it with you, it's not bad. It's a lot more compact than even using this, and this is the smallest tabletop tripod you can get, really. I guess I got smaller ones, but those are totally useless. And this one doesn't allow you to do 90-degree angles, right? Either. This will do about 45 degrees, whereas with this thing, you can do 90 degrees straight up. But when you do things like that, like I said, the balance is off. It's not going to stay pointing straight up. So you have to kind of balance it another way. So it's handy. It's handy. I mean, for 20 bucks or less, I got mine used for like $6. So that's why I got mine. The other problem, okay, there is one major problem though with it. Let me take this off. One major problem with this is the 1/4 20 thread here that sticks out is too long. So it doesn't screw all the way into the camera mount. So what I had to do is I had to put a couple of metal washers around here to make sure it got tight. Because as it is, this will not screw all the way into my Olympus cameras, any of them. Because the thread is not that deep on our Olympus cameras. So just use a couple of metal washers around, and that'll keep it nice and tight. The other thing I've done is sometimes I put a quick release plate on top, a little fishbone. I'll show you. I have the fishbone mounted on something else right now. Uh, Fishbone, Arca Swiss plate. Let's see. Yeah, this thing here. I put this thing here on top of this, and now this acts like a. So now I can just pack this away when I don't need it, and then when I want to take it out, assuming I have an Arca Swiss plate on the camera, right? I can quickly attach it to this and take it back off when I want. So I normally have the Arca Swiss like fishbone type adapter on here, and that adds another $13. And I think let me see, this thing. This thing is $15.99. This is the exact one that I have. So, yeah, I think it comes in handy time to time. It comes in handy. I'll put a link to this and the fishbone thing in the chat. That's for the what do they call it? I'm really bad with vocabulary. Z Flex tilt tripod head. Um, and then the fishbone mount. Here's a link for that. There's a link for those two things, and those are my affiliate links. So I'll make like $1 if you buy it. Okay. David Crooks is texting me. We're going to a park this weekend in Virginia, and they charge out-of-state visitors $10 to park. Otherwise, it's free for in-state. And he just texted me. He said, "You're right." So, um, yeah, they may not be there, especially at 7 in the morning if I get there early. But it's easy enough for me to drive around to that other street on the way there and park. I just have to walk about a half a mile to meet you guys. That's all. Um, yes, that's a great idea, Paul, is just cut off a little bit of the top of the screw, right? That makes sense. But then I need to buy a hacksaw. I don't have a hacksaw. Um, but I did have a couple of metal washers, which worked. Really, really fat, round ones. These are the metal washers I use. I had a few of these laying around in my toolbox, so I put two of these on top like that, and that takes care of my problem. And this also gives a little bit of space for the Arca Swiss plate, the fishbone one, because you'll notice the Arca Swiss plate has a little thumb wheel on the back. That rubs up against the base of the plate, so this gives it a little bit more room for that too. So you may not want to chop off the top of the screw to make it shorter if you're going to use an Arca Swiss plate on top. And let's see. Let's buy Rob. Lauren says, let's buy Rob a camera that only takes crooked photos. I would fix it in post anyway. You might also get a lot of fun out of the Olympus fisheye. Ask Rob. Yes. Oh, Jose. Let me back up a little bit. Robert Welsh says, yes, my pancake lens stopped working due to an electrical issue. See? Olympus will fix it for like $83 according to one person that had it fixed by Olympus. The pancake 14 to 42 power zoom lens. I don't know what they would charge actually, but he told me $83. Um, let's see. Oh, you got one on Amazon. Good. And Jose says, I bought one of those Joby small tripods with the flex legs that wrap around things. I love it. Regular tripod. I have Benro aluminum. Yeah, I have a Joby thing somewhere. Not a, a generic one, not a decent, it sucks. I assume the real brand name Joby tripod is much better. That's what I mean. You get what you pay for a lot of times, right? I have not found a generic Joby tripod, fake imitation one that's any good. And it's not something I would use much. I used it once. I actually used the Joby tripod to, not for my camera, but to hang my flashes off of tree branches. So I could get some backlighting onto a portrait. Um, so it makes for a neat way to hang flashes too, not just cameras, off of tree branches or poles or whatever you want, right? And yeah, Rick says you also might get a lot of fun out of a fisheye. I missed a whole conversation here about the fisheye. I mean, there's really only two fisheye lenses, right? The 9mm body cap, which is $99, and then the 8mm fisheye pro lens, which brand new is like, I don't know, 1,000, but you can buy these for about 700 bucks. And and then you can automatically correct for any distortion if you want in Olympus Workspace very easily. Also in Lightroom. Yeah, there's a little workaround. You have to use a Sigma fisheye, 60mm fisheye profile, and it'll straighten it out for the most part. Tweak it a little and it'll be fine. But yeah, this is a lot of fun, this lens. You don't want to have your whole portfolio full of fisheye pictures, right? But time to time, a fisheye lens really comes in, makes what would be an otherwise kind of normal picture to something really interesting, by adding a fisheye. And fisheye is technically you could use it also for real estate photography if you want to do 360 photos. You would use a fisheye lens like this in a portrait uh, position, and then you'd rotate the lens around to get a 360 photo. So it has a lot of uses, both for just for fun, professionally, like if you're doing events and things like that, and you want to get a group shot of everyone, um, get a fisheye shot of everybody in the group, right? Like I said, don't send everything fisheye, but if you're doing events, whether it's a wedding or corporate event, and you have a few fisheye pictures in there, it makes the event look a lot more fun. One of these days, I can afford like a real desk. The way I'm set up now, I just got two desks kind of put together in an L shape. So I got this leg right here in the middle that's blocking my chair from coming all the way in. I'm always on the level, Lauren. Thank you. I like to say I'm the angle opposite the hypotenuse. So if anybody gets that, let me know. But I'm always the angle opposite the hypotenuse. Little math joke. And Joby used to make neat little wrist strap. It disappeared from the catalog only to reappear as an Amazon strap. The reviews on the Amazon were not kind to the Amazon version. Yeah, sometimes it's just perception, right? If it doesn't have that brand name on it, you know, the reviews just, even though it's not justified. And Rick says, Jose is asking what lens he should buy. My recommendation is always buy the best rather than buying lots of cheap lenses and upgrading. His first decision being zooms or primes. Yeah, it really depends on your level of photography and your budget, right? I mean, I'm a big proponent of the kit lenses as beginners and even professional work. I use kit lenses, to be honest. But that said, um, you know, getting a couple of primes will definitely expand your photography even more for all kinds of other types of things you can't do with kit lenses. And not just like depth of field. Obviously, you get a better depth of field if you want to add that to your portfolio, some shallower type things, but also lower light lower light photography so that you can keep your shutter speeds up and your ISOs low. That's really the main benefit for me with prime lenses is being able to shoot at faster shutter speeds and low lights so I don't get that motion blur. And the Samyang Fisheye 7.5, yeah, I mean it's fine. I have like a Nikon version of that lens with a different name on it, Optica or something. It's fine. You know, fisheye lenses they all look tack sharp because everything is so tiny, right? So you get a lot of detail. But most fisheye lenses, you know, just buy the cheapest one you can, really. If you're just experimenting and playing around, if you want to do actually get really good shots, like this pro lens, you know, the lens flare and the sharpness definitely is there uh, over, say, the Samyang. This is a much better lens, and it better be because it costs 3 or 4 times as much. But I do that because I use this professionally in my real estate and architectural work. But if you're just an enthusiast and want to play around, you know, the 9mm body cap or the Samyangs, you know, there's a lot of them out there that are like $130. They're cheap and they're fine. And Rick says buying anything you'll later need to upgrade is expensive. Buying better and fewer saves money in the long term. I would agree with that. With one, and this is my problem, right? Is I'll buy something really expensive like my 75mm f1.8. I mean, I've been trying to take it out lately and I enjoy it, but for the first couple of years, you know, that's 700 bucks I spent and didn't use at all. Um, and a better decision for me would have been probably the 60mm macro, which is half the price of that lens. It's close enough in focal length, and it has the versatility of close focusing and doing macro. So that's why I agree with that idea the idea of buying the best you can get, you can afford whenever you can. But sometimes you don't know what that is, like me. I don't know what I need. Sometimes I buy things because it is the best. The 75mm f1.8, people say that's the sharpest lens that Olympus ever made, right? Or came out with. And that's why I bought it, not because I needed a 75mm. Um, So that's kind of a really extreme example of buying the best and then not using it. So give careful thought before you drop, hundreds of dollars on the lens that you're really going to use it. And that's why I'm such a strong proponent of just buying the focal length you need at the best price you can, and the kit lenses cover that. You know, there's because like the 17 millimeter f1.2 Pro lens versus the 17 millimeter f1.7, there's like a 5 times price difference between the two. And yeah, everybody tells me, Peter, Robin, Jimmy, say 17 f1.2 is awesome, you know, but I I can't bring myself to do it because that would be a decision where yeah I can probably afford the best, not afford, but I can probably buy the very best, but do I really need it? So I'll get the 17-1.8, and I've been very happy with that lens, even though I know there's a better lens out there. So and I don't see myself replacing the 17-1.8 with the 17-1.2 ever personally. So you really have to know what you need and what you want. If you want the absolute best all the time, yeah, you gotta put up the money for it. And Rob, check my question on using the Olympus name. Jose got the triangle math. Uh, Jose says, I like the Pro lens because of their durability and a harsh weather sealing like rain. Yes, I do not, I don't worry about weather sealing personally too much. I have a 14-150, which is weather sealed. I mean, if it's raining out, my thinking is, how much do you really need a Pro lens? I mean, the rain is going to make everything blurry anyway. Um, but I don't know. Like I said, I think you get what you pay for. Definitely, the Pro lenses are worth every penny. But I don't need it for the kind of work I do. I did buy a Pro lens for my real estate photography. Um, but this is a write-off, right? It's not something, so it cost me effectively half when you put in taxes into play, at least here in the US. So what pro so Jose is wondering what pro lenses to buy. I'm trying to find Leon's question about the OMD name. I don't know if I can just search for it, Leon. Jose's asking, what do I think of the 75 to 300? That's one I missed. I'll get to that. And okay, I found Leon's question. Rob, we should talk about Olympus as the company or start getting used to talk about OM Digital Solution or just OMD. I know it's difficult because we used to speak of Olympus. Yes. I mean, I think it's fair to say to use the word Olympus um, until OMD comes out with a new camera or lens on their own, right? So we're still talking about Olympus cameras, Olympus lenses. Um, And then when we talk about, at least for now, when we talk about future things, we're going to say, what do you think OM Digital is going to come out with in the future, or OMD? I like just saying OMD instead of OM Digital. You save a couple of syllables. But when you say OMD, it's a little confusing because are you talking about the camera or are you talking about the company? But if I say OM Digital, then you know I'm talking about the company, right? So I think we should always say OM Digital and distinguish that between OMD, which would be a camera, but OM Digital is the company. That's my thought on that. And the 75 to 300 takes great pictures in good light, meaning it has to be sunny out. Summertime, if you live near the equator, I mean bright, bright light, it takes great pictures. As soon as the light starts to drop, if it's cloudy out, it's a problem on the long end. On the short end, you're okay. But on the long end, which is why you buy it, so I found that if you stay with under 250 millimeters, like shoot at 240 millimeters and don't go beyond that and shoot at f8, you get pretty good images. But you're at f8. But the way, when you don't have enough light, you have to crank your ISO up, right? And that's where the defects of this lens really start to come through, is when you start cranking the ISO up to 400, 800, 1600, which you have to do when you're at f8 and trying to keep a fat, because that's a lens you're trying to do birds in flight typically, right? And you need a fast shutter speed, 1/1000th of a second, 1/2000th of a second. And to get those kind of shutter speeds, you have to crank your ISO 1600, 3200, 6400. Even in good light, you're at pretty high ISOs. So for action type photography, that lens is a challenge. It focuses fast enough. The performance and autofocus and everything is pretty good on the OMDs, the EM1s, the Mark II and the Mark III. It's fine. But my challenge is when I have to use a fast shutter speed with that lens at f8, I need a lot of light. Otherwise, the ISO start cranking, and then the image quality degrades very quickly with that lens. Unlike primes and other lenses that are very sharp, right? You can crank the ISOs up and still get good detail and sharpness. But with that lens, as soon as you start cranking the ISOs up on it, it falls apart pretty quickly. So that's my only problem with that lens. I mean, I love the focal length. On a bright, sunny, clear day, it takes great pictures, plenty of detail, but it's, you know, it's it's not a 300 millimeter f4, in other words, right? You're much better off because you could take like the 40 to 150 Pro lens with a 2x teleconverter, so you're back to like f5.6 at a 300 millimeter at the same focal length. So you're a full stop, you're easily a stop faster. I mean, I know it's only 2/3 of a stop difference or a third, but if you're shooting at higher ISOs with a 40 to 150 Pro lens and the 2x teleconverter, you are still going to get sharper images, even though you're at the same ISO, because that lens does not fall apart at higher ISOs. From all of the images I've seen when I do my photo editing stream or images I've seen online, the images don't fall apart like the 75 to 300 does when you start cranking the ISOs. So that's my thoughts on that lens. Is if you can keep your ISOs low, like 200, 400, more than that, it starts to be a problem. You're okay. You'll get plenty of detail out of it. But it's like right on that edge where when you start to bump the ISO up, the detail and everything falls apart quickly. 300 millimeter f4 Pro, my God, you could shoot that at ISO 3200 and still get terrific detail out of that lens because it's so freaking sharp. When you take a lens that's not that sharp to begin with, in good light you'll get plenty of detail, but in bad light, man, that thing is rough. So it's only 400 bucks. I I wouldn't, if you're just a hobbyist, maybe get it and you don't have, $2,500 to buy, or $2,000 to buy one of the pro lenses. It'll get you by, um, and you can work around its limitations best you can. But if you're serious about bird photography or close up, getting that kind of reach with any kind of detail, the pro lenses are the only way to go. And I think that's where Rick's um, message there about buy buy the best you can now, it'll save you money in the long run. Definitely, it would apply to this particular situation where the 75 to 300 that's $400 down the drain if you're serious about doing bird photography where you need that kind of reach, or wildlife photography, or sport photography, sports action. That's 400 or 500 bucks down the drain because you're not going to get good results with it. As an enthusiast, it's fine, right? Okay, so hopefully I got every. If I missed your question at this point, you have to ask it again because I'm not going to be able to find it at this point. There's so many messages here. Uh, is it me or is the sound occasionally? Hopefully the sound's okay. I got the mic a little bit far away. I can bring it a little closer and turn it up. Okay. That's the best I'm going to be able to do. But I think the sound from this mic is a lot better. I was watching Jimmy Chang's live stream yesterday, and it wasn't really until the end where he got the sound right. His sound quality is, he's using the Rode mic. I guess it doesn't have, it's not powered maybe. It's very quiet. Yeah, Leon, I was talking about Robin Wong's video about using MFT cameras with high ISO near the beginning of this stream. Definitely everyone check out Robin's most recent video. And speaking of other Micro Four Third users, this weekend I'm gonna have Maddie Salanto on. So look for that link tonight for the live stream coming this Sunday with Maddie Salanto. We're gonna try and pick up where we left off because I couldn't get him in on the live stream where we had the collaboration. Um, so I'm gonna get his point of views and opinions, perspective on Panasonic, but in the same vein, his opinions about what we think of the future of Panasonic, Micro Four Thirds, and full frame because they do both, um, and some other things too. So look for that this weekend because I know a lot of people missed Maddie in that last stream. I feel so bad still, but he's going to be here this weekend. And Randy says the 100 to 400 f5 is bright daytime lens too. Yes. Yeah, f5 is better than f8 though, but I would imagine I think it's the 100 to 4, yeah, the 100 to 400, 1500 bucks. That seems like an excellent lens. I mean, far superior to the 75 to 300. So if you don't care about the size and weight of that lens, the 100 to 400, and the price being 3 or 4 times as high, I would get the 100 to 400 way over the 75 to 300. I mean, I've been thinking about it. I can trade in some of my Nikon glass to get it maybe. But it's not a focal length I use very much, but maybe because my 75 to 300 is a little rough. And Johannes de Wall says, I have the 75 to 300. It's really sharp and good light, however slow on focus, but well worth a little bit of money. Yeah, I think it's worth what you pay for. Definitely worth 400 or 500 bucks. I mean, try to stay around 400. And in good light, it's great. But like I said, it falls apart when you start cranking ISOs up. OM Digital gets my vote, yes. But I'll always say Olympus. Yeah, it's going to be a hard habit to break, right? It's kind of like, you know, we have a new president now, President Joe Biden, but I catch people constantly saying Vice President Biden because he's been vice president for years and years, right? Uh, so they catch themselves. So that's going to be kind of like with Olympus, right? We'll be saying Olympus, but we should say, oh no, OM Digital. Yes, all things considered, gear does matter, is what Thomas Zazka says. It does. I mean, if I got $1,000 lens and you got $100 lens, I'm gonna get a better picture, right? If we take the same picture, I'm gonna get a better quality. I should say, not a better picture, but better quality. Yeah, every time, definitely. Yeah, and Jose says, I think I'll get the 40 to 1. Yeah, the 40 to 150 Pro lens is excellent. $99 40 to 150 kit lens. I've seen it for low as $60. If you don't have anything, that's a throwaway lens, but it's very good. Not nowhere near as good as the 40 to 150 though. Not even close. And yeah, Matty Salanto is great. He is. Hey, Arthur's here. Good to see you. And Lauren says Panasonic needs even more inexpensive full frame and lenses for full frame. I predict that those are next. MFT continues for video is a possibility. Yeah. Bob Tishmarsh sent me an email last night, I think, linking me to a rumor. I guess it's on 43rumors.com. That Sony's confirmed a 30 megapixel 8K video sensor. So it's a still sensor at 30 megapixels and 8K video. And that's likely to go into the Panasonic GH6. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, a lot of sensors like the EM1 Mark III, it's based off the 20 megapixel sensor you see in every camera, MFT, right? But there's subtle differences. That's why you can't find the part number for that camera all the time. There's subtle differences with the focusing layers and things, maybe the micro lenses, the color. I don't know what the differences are, but a lot of times the sensors are made specifically for a particular camera and they make changes to the sensor, but fundamentally it's based off an off-the-shelf sensor that Sony already makes. So you'll find a 20 megapixel Sony sensor off the shelf that is probably the same sensor that's in our OMDs, but the OMD has a different part number because they added or subtracted whatever. They did something a little different, very specific to that sensor. But the performance is going to be virtually identical in terms of low light capability, frame rates, all of that stuff. Yeah, that's right. You're funny, Lauren. I remember that about Biden running for Senate. And Randy says the 4150 Pro is my all-time favorite. And Randy would know because he has them all, right? He has the 40 to 150 Pro. He has the 300 millimeter Pro. He has the 100 to 400 non-pro, semi-pro lens. Um, so he has all of the telephoto lenses, and he loves them all. So if he says the 40 to 150 is his all-time favorite, um, I would definitely give that. He's got a lot of credibility to make a statement like that. Is all I'm saying. And John Allen says, I like the color rendition of the Panasonic lenses. Yes. If you can see that, then great. I'm not that sensitive to it. Um, but technically, yeah, there are differences in color and lenses. And you can see it when I see it mostly in white balance. If I fix the white balance on the camera and I swap lenses, I can see a little difference in color. Definitely. Very, very subtle though. Very subtle. And if you're buying the 40 to 150 Pro used, check that the lens hood is glue is good. It can explode into tiny bits if the glue fails. Um, I've heard that too, uh, Rick. I mean, the solution is just to buy a screw-on lens hood for it, really, and just forget about the if the lens hood is broken or breaks on your 40 to 150 Pro, um, I would just buy a screw-on lens hood for it. you know, a generic one, rather than buying the Olympus one again. And Garrett's asking, what about the 12 to 100 Pro? That is definitely, if you don't mind the size and weight, because it's like 700 grams and it's pretty big, relatively speaking, to other lenses. Um, that is the do-it-all, like glued to your camera kind of lens. If you get that lens, you don't need to bring any primes, really, because at f4 you're pretty close. Well, you're two stops. I mean, if you don't need like f1.8 from a prime, that is definitely the do-it-all lens. Really tack sharp. It's not a lens I own, but every image I've seen, everybody that's ever talked about that lens or owned that lens has said that is the sharpest lens across the range. So if you can get away with the size, weight, and being stuck at f4, it's great. And f4 is fine, really, for 99% of them. Well, I don't want to give a percentage, but for a lot of photography, you can get by with f4. Um, and the fact that it's so sharp, cranking the ISO on that lens is not as big a problem as it is, say, on a kit lens. Because a kit lens can be at f4 at those focal lengths, right? Give or take. And that's the challenge, is when you have a lens that's not quite as sharp as a pro lens, when you start cranking the ISOs up, that's when it really becomes a problem. But a lens like that, like any of the pro lenses, you can crank the ISOs on them and you'll still get plenty of detail, plenty of sharpness out of it. So I don't have any problem recommending that lens if you don't, you know, mind the weight. I'm not a big fan of heavy lenses myself, right? I mean, I like them 300 grams or less if I can help it. You know, most of my lenses, like I take my Panasonic 12 to 32 lens. It's only 70 grams. I love that lens. My 14 to 150 is like a couple hundred grams. It's not much. Um, and that's just how I prefer to shoot. Um, if I need more light or sharper image, I'll whip out a prime. But if you're not into swapping lenses and you want, if you know, it's really handy if you're out in the field because it's weather sealed. It has the extra image stabilization, right? So you can do the dual image stabilization action and get even better, better shots. Like, because the image stabilization helps not only with slow shutter speeds but with fast shutter speeds. And by fast, I mean like 1/60th of a second, right? Um, because once you get to about 1/250th, 1/500th, IS is not quite as critical. But yeah, if you don't want to swap lenses in the field, like if it's raining or something, you have a fully weather sealed camera and body. You know, if you have one of the OMDs, you have a weather sealed um, camera with a weather sealed lens. You'll never have to take that lens off. So it's very, very handy for that too, where you have this great focal range and fully weather sealed body. So there's a lot of reasons to get a pro lens if you have a weather sealed body. And Lauren says the 35 to 100 penny lens. They have a 35 to 100 f2.8, which uh, is really good. I think the close focusing distance isn't quite as good as on the Olympus 12 to 100. But if you need an extra stop at f2.8, a 35 to 100 is an option, but it starts at 35, which is might be a little too tight for some. And Johanna says, have the 12 to 100, can't think about any other lens needed, fast and focus and sharp. Yeah, everybody that owns that, they have no complaints. I've never heard one person say, I hate that lens. Not one. And Lauren says, the 12 to 60 can be compact and light in MFTs. Yeah, Panasonic has a lot of good lenses too. I mean, I wouldn't rule them out if I owned a Panasonic camera, I would definitely buy Panasonic lenses. But I rule them out a lot of times because they don't always work as well on our Olympus cameras as a native Olympus lens would. So I always stick with Olympus lenses on Olympus cameras if I can help it. Now the little 12 to 32 kit lens, it's just sort of a do-it-all lens, and I'm not worried about the image. I'm not worried about any shortcomings that might come into play, if any. But when I was testing the Panasonic 25 millimeter f1.7 lens versus the 25 millimeter Olympus lens, because the Panasonic is at least half the price of the Olympus version. And I felt it was just as sharp, but it had a little bit more chromatic aberration, like purple fringing and stuff. And it definitely focused slower than the Olympus version. And there might be some other problems that you might run into in very critical work. It's not stuff that I would run into in my photography, but my advice usually is if you're on a budget, 99% of the time, the 25 millimeter Panasonic is perfect. You save a lot of money, you save a couple $100, and you get great image quality. But the only issue I heard that it had was that it does back focus at f4 for some reason. And Matty Salanto's confirmed that. And he's using Panasonic cameras, so it's going to do it on Olympus. But the Olympus 25 millimeter, I'm using that lens right now for this live stream. This is the lens that I use. And Randy says, when I walk out of the house for whatever, the 12-100 goes with me. Yes. And Valdez says, the MFT 14-150 is my biggest lens. Perfect for the M1. It is a great lens. And Bob Finley says, the 12-100, bit too heavy for small cameras. Best on the M1 series. Yes. Yeah. You want to have the M1 because of the grip and the weather sealing. Then it's really like bread and butter. It's perfect match. I mean, if I think about it, if I had to choose between the 12 to 40 Pro and the 12 to 100 at this point, I'd rather have the 12 to 100. But since I have a 12 to 40 and it's a stop faster, I have no need for a 12 to 100. And Valdez says Panasonic has a 35 to 100 f4 to 5.6. It's under the radar sharp lens. Interesting. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. It's really small, right? I've seen that lens. That would be kind of a great lens for my GX85. Oh, Randy, yeah, Rick and Randy are talking about the lens hood on the 40 to 150. There is a video about how to fix the lens hood on the 40 to 150 Pro. I guess there's some ball bearings inside. So if you search for it on YouTube, fix the 40 to 150 lens hood, you'll find a couple of videos on it, and there's one really good one. But it's not a lens I own, so I can't speak to it. But I forgot all about that. There is a video on that. And John uses the 20 millimeter on his GM5. Yeah, that's small. That's really compact, isn't it? What's his name just did a video on, I think, the GM5. Marcus Pix did a video on the GM5. Randy says, robtrek, looking at the Pen F, want a small walk-around camera. I think for you, Randy, the EM10s might be a better small walk-around camera for you. But the Pen F is definitely the problem with the Pen F is the autofocus is not quite as good as any of the OMDs. It's a little slower, and it's not as good in low light. That said, you know, you don't buy the Pen F for its practicality. You buy it for its aesthetics and for the extra features. So if you're interested in the creative dial on the front and having fun with that and dialing in your own color saturations and the monochrome grain, you know, all of the things that make the Pen F special, definitely it's a great camera. But as a walk around camera, I think in your case, if you don't care about those things, then I think an EM10 might be a better choice. Because it's like a third the cost of the Pen F, and it functionally the autofocus is better on it. On it, yeah. Now the Pen F has a couple of extra features that are kind of nice that like the EM10 does not. You know, it has the focus stacking, high-res shot mode. Um, it also has a lens profile, so if you like to adapt lenses, I've never heard you of adapting lenses, but you know, adapting lenses, you can actually add lens profiles in so that it shows up in the EXIF data. So it is a better camera by any measure in terms of features, but I don't know if you really care about those things. If you care about the creative dial on the front, the monochrome profiles, or the doing the saturations and colors. You know, if you don't care about any of those things, I think an EM10 might be a better walk-around camera, or an EM5 Mark II for that matter. And the only problem with the EM5 Mark II is it's the buffer sucks on it. You're not going to get a high-speed burst out of that camera to save your life. And Lauren says the Panasonic 35 to 100 kit is $398, so there you go, compact and inexpensive. Yep. I honestly I would get the 14 to 150 over the Panasonic 35 to 100 because it's weather sealed and you can buy it used for like 300 bucks. Yeah, and looking at the M10s, okay, so I'm a little behind, but yeah, the M10s, EM10 Mark II, definitely. That is the go-to camera for walking around. Daytime shooter, so no worries. Yeah, when I was talking about the low light autofocus, it's just a little, but it is slower to autofocus too. It is slower for whatever reason. And Lauren says the Pen PL8 is fast focusing. 249. Yeah, the Pen PL8 is a great little camera too. Just no viewfinder. I think Randy would prefer viewfinder. But if you don't care about the viewfinder, the Pen PL8 is awesome. This was my go-to camera forever. If you watch any of my vlogs and photos like in 2018, 2017, before I bought the M5 Mark III, um, this this is a great camera, very pocketable. Not as pocketable as a GM5 with a 20 millimeter pancake, but definitely. And you can put a mic jack on it with the adapter. The adapter is impossible to find now though, so don't even consider it for video with a mic. Randy says good points. Just a daytime walk around camera with good quality photos. Yeah, then definitely EM10. Love the mono color wheel on the Pen F. Getting close to dialing a Kodachrome look I remember from, yes. And you've probably seen my Kodachrome video for the Pen F, right? So check that out. And there's some links to the guy that actually came up with those profiles. And if you go to the MU43 forum, you know, there's lots of profiles you can dial in from that forum that people have tried. Arthur says EM10 Mark II, agree for street. Yes, definitely. And the rangefinder style camera, the GX9 for $798 with the 12 to 60 lens seems like a good deal. Will it ever go lower? Maybe. Maybe, yeah. I mean, that looks like a cool little camera. And I think it's still got the flip up EVF on it too, right? And Valdez says, Mono 2 on the Pen F is the best black and white other than like a monochrome. It is nice. It is nice. But you have to use the grain simulation to really get the full effect of that profile. Because you can, by default, I think it's set to medium grain, which is fine. Depending on the focal length you're using, medium is fine. I think if you turn the grain off, it's pretty much the same as any other OMD. 300 bucks for an EM10 Mark II. Yeah, I guess that's about right. Lauren says the PL8 is all metal, looks cool, something to stare at if nothing else. Yeah, it is a cool little camera. I mean, I got the mic adapter on it, but yeah, I thought this was. I got this by accident. I was bidding on it on eBay, and I put in a low bid on it. I got this for effectively 200 bucks at the time, and a few days later, I got an email saying you won. I'm like, what? I won it. It took me a couple of days to get around to it. The guy almost canceled my bid, but I won it. Um, yes, John Ute says that's I can confirm that the EPL8 was the last PL model that would take an accessory EVF and the accessory mic jack adapter that I used on it for all my vlogging. And Rick Bear says strengths and weakness in OMD range show why it's vital to decide your priorities. The M5 Mark II is best value for landscape and pack shots. Don't waste money buying what you don't need. Yes. Definitely, EM5 Mark II is one of the best cameras ever made. And I think other than the buffer being crap, for sports action, does everything else. And I think it's still a competitive camera today. Does everything. It doesn't do 4K, but who cares, right, for video. But it does everything else. High-res shot, focus stacking in camera, lots of controls and dials and buttons are all placed in the right place. I mean, this is really, you know, probably the best camera they've ever made. I think, the M1 Mark II, of course, is their best camera, but that's a little bit different form factor because it has a deep grip on it, right? This is really a great camera. It's smaller, lighter, very durable. I've heard stories about that thing going through mud and snow and, so the weather sealing is excellent. I have a video comparing all of the OMDs, right? Not the most recent one that compares like oh, that's a good one too. But I got two videos on OMDs. I got one that says the Mark II series still the best in 2020. And then I made another video comparing all of the OMDs from the EM10 up to the EM1 Mark III. And what you kind of are up to the EM1X actually. I kind of missed a couple things on the EM1X because I don't own that camera, but there are some things that I should have mentioned about the M1X that I didn't in that video. But those two videos are pretty good about the cameras. Oh, you tried 60 plus photos for a 360-degree photo. It is tough. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. You really need a fisheye lens to do it to get really good results. Lauren says the M10 Mark IV when I need to get going. When if shaves a couple of hundred off the sticker will be a decent deal, and who doesn't need a 4 now and then? Yeah, I think during Christmas, like when they had all the specials, it was a good deal. It was about 200 bucks off. That's an excellent deal. At full price, regular price, I mean, it's worth it. If you really use it and get into photography, you'll get your money's worth. But if you want to, if if you want to get it at a more competitive price with other things on the market, yeah, a couple $100 off is about the right price point. Yeah, I know, Rick, right? The reminders for the live streams are very laggy. And Randy's asking, do I do 360 virtual tours? I do not. Um, they're so labor intensive and it's competitive that I wouldn't make much money off it. People ask me to do it time to time, and I said, well, you know, 300 bucks, maybe 250, I can do it. On top of, you know, the regular shoot, right? A couple $100 there. So now they're looking at like, you know, $400 or $500 to do a 360 photo shoot with regular photos, never mind video. And agents just don't want to pay that. Now there are some, I've seen some people price it for like $100, but they have like, um, you know, they have a dedicated like $3,000 or $4,000 camera. Not only the Matterport, but there's some other companies out there doing it. And some people are trying to use those little 360 cameras. I tried, but it was crap. If I could use a 360 camera to do my 360 tours and get decent quality, I could charge like 100, 150 bucks for a 360 tour. But I'm not going to deliver the quality I was getting out of the 360 camera I have. I have the ones, the three, what I forget even what it's called, but I have one. You know, relatively new. It just came out last year, and I'm not going to deliver quality like that, even for 100 bucks. It's just not worth it. You know, I want to use my OMD with my fisheye lens, right? And you have to take at least 5 shots, but typically you want to take about 8 pictures per room when you're doing 360, and then you get high quality. But the agents don't want to pay for that, you know, because I would have to charge 250, 300 bucks for a small place. And I don't blame them. That's a lot of money for just a tour. It's easier just, you know, it's easier to do a video and then do a 360 tour. So I added video to my services rather than a 360. And a video is, in my opinion, more effective, you know. Rob's 3-hour tour got stuck on an island, I heard. And Sawtooth, I do 360s for my employer, and they are more than happy with the Theta Z1. Yeah, the Theta Z1, I saw the image. You sent them to, I think it was you. You sent me a couple of samples. It's okay. You know, it wasn't, obviously it's not, you know, OMD quality, right? But, um, I was, I might consider that if I really get pushed into doing 360 all the time, the Theta Z1 would be my camera of choice right now. But I haven't looked in the market for a while. There might be some more stuff out now that does better. It's a tough call. Hold on. Why do I keep getting these notices? Okay. Anyway, we're a couple minutes from my next stream, so I need to get ready for my photo editing stream. You guys, thanks so much for joining me today on my, what is it, Thursday live stream. I really appreciate it. It's always a lot of fun, highlight of my day. I'll be back on Sunday with Maddie Salanto, so look forward to that. But for now, I'm going to go over to my photo editing live stream starting in about 10 minutes. So I might be a few minutes late on that one, but you know, what's new, right? So thanks again for you guys being here. I really appreciate it. We'll see you again soon.